The warning was clear. The clock ran out, and the world watched. 3 days, that was the time Traore gave. 72 hours for the State of Israel to acknowledge what it had long denied, that Africa is not a pawn, that African nations would no longer tolerate silence, surveillance, and subversion in the name of strategic partnerships. The world held its breath, and then silence. No response from Tel Aviv. No urgency, no statement. Just a cold, deliberate quiet. It looked like indifference, but it was. Behind the curtains, something was already moving. Inside Netanyahu's war room, the mood wasn't calm. It was clinical, calculating. Threat assessments were revised, regional liaisons were activated, and a new directive was issued. Do not engage. Yet. Because this wasn't a war Israel had fought before. Not with drones. Not with rockets. But with narrative. This was a diplomatic grenade tossed onto the global stage. And Netanyahu's team wanted to see where the shrapnel would fall. Traore had made the first move. But now it was Tel Aviv's turn. And they were not going to make the mistake of underestimating him twice. Because they understood something many didn't. This wasn't just one African president speaking. This was the echo of centuries. The voice of a continent rediscovering its posture, so Israel didn't strike back immediately. They listened. They watched. And they plotted 40-8 hours after Traore's broadcast. Major Western media outlets began publishing independent analyses, all with a familiar tone. Burkina Faso's fiery rhetoric threatens regional stability, rising authoritarianism, cloaked in anti-imperialist language. Is Traore's alliance a front for hostile actors? The language was coded, but the message wasn't. Delegitimize, isolate, discredit. This wasn't journalism. This was psychological warfare, and the fingerprints were unmistakable. Behind the headlines, Israel's digital influence networks quietly spun into gear. A mix of bot accounts, anonymous op-eds, think tanks that had never once spoken about Africa were suddenly concerned about African democracy. The timing, perfect. The coordination, impeccable. The intent, was crystal clear. There was a problem. It didn't work, because something had changed in the global south. The usual blueprints, mirror the leader, scare the allies, fracture the movement was collapsing. This wasn't the 1990s. This was the age of the exposed playbook. In Nairobi, thousands marched. In Accra, students flooded campuses with banners reading, "Respect is not radical." And in Lagos, a pop star released a freestyle that went viral in under 12 hours. Its hook, 72 hours. You heard him. The people weren't confused. They were charged. Traore's message had cut through the noise. Not because it was new, but because it was finally being said out loud, with no filter, no fear. And while Netanyahu's machinery tried to reshape the story, they had forgotten one thing. The continent was no longer watching passively. It was participating. Still, Israel wasn't done. If media pressure wouldn't bend Traore, then economic leverage might. Diplomatic sources confirmed that Netanyahu's government began quietly contacting key African governments. Offers were made, deals were dangled. Some received reminders about stalled military aid packages. Others were warned that continuing support for Traore's alliance might jeopardize future development projects. One West African nation received a direct message: distance yourselves or face consequences. And yet, within a week, 5 African countries either paused or canceled ongoing deals with Israel. Not out of hatred, out of principle. 2 suspended military training contracts. 1 halted construction on a surveillance facility funded by Israeli firms. And in one stunning move, Ghana, a longtime Israeli trade partner, leased a cryptic, yet powerful statement: no nation may dictate Africa's terms of dignity. Not anymore. There were no names. But everyone knew who it was about, and so Netanyahu's strategy pivoted again. He turned inward. Leaks from Israeli intelligence suggest that a new priority was set. Discredit Traore not just externally, but internally, Sources point to online campaigns targeting Burkina Faso's economy, timed misinformation about food and fuel shortages, and even cyber attacks on state infrastructure, plausibly deniable, all highly technical. But once again, the counterattack stumbled, because for every attempt to isolate Traore, a louder voice emerged in his defense. South Africa's parliament passed a resolution praising Burkina Faso's clarity and courage. Chad's youth movement called for a review of all Israeli investments, and the Congolese diaspora organized an online petition that reached 1 million signatures in 48 hours. The story wasn't going away. If anything, Netanyahu's actions had poured gasoline on a growing fire. Traore, for his part, remained silent. Publicly, no new speeches, no press junkets, no provocations. Just the quiet confidence of someone who knows the world. It's watching not because he shouted, but because he stood. And that, more than any official policy, has terrified Israel. Because Netanyahu understands momentum he's used it before he's manufactured it, weaponized it. But now, he was on the receiving end. And the question he couldn't answer was the one haunting every Western foreign ministry. How do you stop a movement that no longer needs permission? Because that's what this is now. Not a political gambit, not a regional spat. Shift. A fundamental shift in how power is spoken to. For decades, African voices were filtered through gatekeepers, translated, softened, erased. But not this time. This time, the voice was raw, uncut, direct, and it made the world uncomfortable. But discomfort is how empires fall. Israel had responded. That much was clear. But its response, its full-spectrum counteroffensive, revealed something deeper. That for all its power, for all its alliances, it didn't have the one thing Traore had secured: legitimacy in the eyes of the emerging world. Because legitimacy can't be bought. It can't be spun. It's earned. And once earned, it spreads. That's what Netanyahu fears most. Not Traore's army, not his speeches, not even his sanctions. But the idea that respect is now the baseline, not the reward. The idea that Africa's silence was never consent, that its patience was never surrender, that its new leaders don't come to negotiate their humanity, they come to declare it. So where does it go from here? Israel will keep pressing, it's certain. More covert actions, more back-channel deals, more attempts to find the crack in the alliance. But here's the problem. They're not fighting a country anymore. They're fighting a mindset, and mindsets don't sign treaties. They don't bow to leverage. They don't back down at headlines. They rise slowly, then all at once. And when they do, even the mightiest towers begin to shake. So the question isn't whether Netanyahu responded. It's whether his playbook still works in this new world. And if it doesn't, then this isn't just a diplomatic incident. It's the beginning of something much bigger, something louder, something global, something irreversible. So now I ask you, was Netanyahu's response a show of strength or a signal of fear? Comment below. Let us know where you're watching from. If you felt the shift, if you see the storm gathering, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel for more raw, unfiltered breakdowns of the moments rewriting history as we speak, because this isn't politics. This is a reckoning, and the world you knew is changing.